I used to be a stripper.
What'll it be?
Hi. Hello. Yes. Yes. Let's start.
Let's go. Huh? Now what?
My children.
Mom.
No, God.
I'll show you just how strong I am.
Our target is Kabuto Yakushi, a very skilled ninja. According to the data that I have, he's lurking around here somewhere. We need to find him. But this has to be done with great care. Unless we carefully corner him, he'll slip right through our fingers, like a snake. Target located.
Well, good job finding me. But now that you've found me, it's all over. For you, that is. I'm going to kill you now. All right, shall we get started? Over here. I'll handle this.
That's the spot. Hey, say goodbye. No.
I'm gonna carve you up.
Yes, that's the spot. Yes. It's over.
Oh, you're surprisingly skilled. Maybe I'll watch you for a bit.
Just when I thought we had him. Now we have to face a snake?
Yeah, that's the spot. It's over. Summoning salamander. Yes. Hey. No.
Good. I'm glad that's over. Now we can start looking for Kabuto once again.
Good.
But it's about time we ended this game of hide and seek.
Leave this to me.
I'll make this quick. We're at the end of your rope. Are we about finished here?
It looks like it's working. I'll slice you into pieces. Seriously? I'm gonna carve you up! Over here!
It's over. Yeah.
Good. Now things are getting exciting. I was hoping for this. Serious?
It's over. 8 trigrams, palm rotation.
I'm gonna carve you up! got time.
Slow.
There's nowhere to run.
Pretty impressive. Yes!
Go! Super Beat Super Beat Lord. Perhaps I had a little too much fun. Oh well. I'll step down for today.
Honestly, I would have lost back there if it hadn't been for you. What are you supposed to say in times like these? Oh yeah, thanks, right?
this to me.
What'll it be?
The locals think it's a curse. I need to get out of this place.
Hey.
Oh, hey there. lose this one. I can't lose this one.
Look at Rainbow Six.
The Japanese culture is very rich in myths, ghost stories, urban legends, and supernatural phenomena. In Japan, spirits and demons are popularly termed yokai. The word yokai means bewitching, attractive, calamity, spectre, apparition, mystery, and suspicious. Yokai are a class of supernatural monsters, spirits, and demons. They may be good, they may be evil, they may be but there are attractive monsters and they still fury the minds of the Japanese and believe to today. Now I tell you their stories and how they rose to become the most feared the sheep must have been a demon or a dragon. Was apprenticed to the mountain temple god that became. However, monastic life did not suit him. He was disrespectful, got into fights with the other monks, and he was lazy in his studies. He spent most of his time drinking sake, which is how he earned the nickname Shinobi, little drunkard. One night during a festival, Shinobi got really drunk and decided to play pranks. He put on an Oni mask and snuck around the festival, jumping out of the darkness and scaring festival goers. After the festival, he was unable to take the Oni mask off. It had fused to his face, becoming a part of his body. When he sought help from the abbot, he was scolded for his wickedness. He was mocked and teased by the other monks for his ugliness. His heart became like an Oni tea, wicked and full of anger. Shinobi left the monastery and fled into the mountains to live as a hermit. In his solitude, Shinobi grew to hate the world. He embraced his wickedness and began to study black magic. He used his power and wit to attack the merchants and travelers moving through his area. He kidnapped young men and women to traffic their organs. With each passing year, he grew more powerful and more violent. As he grew, and other wicked people began to flock to his cause. Like Shinobi, these people transformed into a being. Before long, Shinobi had become like akin to a small army of demons. Shinobi and his thugs built a castle on Mount O. He set his sights on wreaking vengeance upon the cruel world, and becoming ruler over all of Japan. Using the mountain as a base of operations, Shinobi's army began to attack the capital in greater frequency. Their kidnappings and murders attracted the attention of Emperor Akio, who decided that Shinobi needed to be stopped before he became any more powerful. The emperor commanded his bravest warrior, Raiko, to climb Mount O and bring back the head of Shinobi. Raiko and his men ventured into the mountains and found the army alone inside their castle, drinking some. They poisoned the sake, and when the Oni had all fallen into a poison-induced drunken slumber, Raiko and his men snuck into the castle. They slew the Oni one by one, and finally they reached Shinobi. Raiko swung his sword and sliced off the Oni king's head. Shinobi was so powerful that even after he had been killed, his head continued to bite at the heroes. Eventually the head was buried outside of the city limits, where it could cause no more trouble to Tamaru no Mei, popularly called the Kitsune. Tamaru no Mei was a wicked, shape-changing, no-tailed fox whose evil was only matched by her ambition. She disguised herself as a human child and was found by an elderly couple who were unable to have children of their own. They named her because humans raised her as their daughter, because she proved to be an exceptionally talented and beautiful young woman, and attracted the attention of everyone around her. When she was 7 years old, she recited poetry in front of Emperor, who was so taken with her that he offered her a job like a sponge. There was no question she could not answer, whether it was about history, astronomy, religion, or Chinese classics. Her clothes were always clean and unwrinkled. She always smelled pleasant, because she had the most beautiful face in all of Japan, and everyone who saw her loved her. One summer, during a poetry recital, a powerful rainstorm hit. The candles in the recital room were snuffed out by the wind. Suddenly, a bright light emanated from Mikazuma's body, illuminating the room. Everybody at the recital was shocked, and it was declared that she must have had an exceedingly good and holy past life. Mikazuma was given the name Tamamo no Mae, and Emperor Toba, already exceedingly fond of her, made her into his consort. Shortly afterwards, Emperor Toba became greatly ill. The country's best physicians could not figure out what was wrong with him. The highest priests prayed for him to get better, but he only grew worse. Sorcerers were ordained to divine the cause of his illness. According to the sorcerers, the emperor was being made sick by someone close to him. They suspected that Tamamo no Mae was actually a fox in disguise, but the emperor refused to believe that his beloved only son could. In fact, she had been using her magic to shorten the emperor's life, and was responsible for his condition. Tamamo no Mae was ordered to participate in the divine rituals to save the emperor's life. The sorcerers reasoned that if she were an evil spirit, she would not be able to recite the holy words or perform the ritual. She was reluctant to participate, for she was afraid of what would happen when the sorcerers identified her as the cause of the emperor's illness. But due to court decorum, she had little choice. She recited the holy words and played her part extremely well. But just as she was about to wave the ceremonial staff, she vanished. The sorcerer's suspicions were confirmed. The emperor summoned his best warriors and ordered them to find Tamamo no Mae. An army of 80,000 men was sent forth to hunt her down. News came that a nine-tailed fox had been spotted in the east. The army chased her all the way to the plains of Nasuno. The night before she was caught, Tamamo no Mae appeared to an archer named Mia Inosuke in a dream. She was crying. She told him that tomorrow he would find her, and she begged him to spare her life. Her beauty was indescribable. She appeared so pitiable. But Mia Inosuke's sense of duty was stronger than his sense of pity, and he rejected her plea. The next day Mia Inosuke spotted a nine-tailed fox on the plains. He fired 2 arrows at it, piercing its side and neck. The swordsman Inosuke swung his blade at its head. The fox fell, and Tamamo no Mae's life ended. The army returned to Kyoto with the fox's body as proof of her defeat. However, Tamamo no Mae's evil did not end with her death. 1 year after she died, Emperor Kono died, heirless. The following year, her lover, the former Emperor Toba, died as well. This paved the way for a succession crisis that spelled the end of imperial power in Japan and allowed the rise of the first shoguns. 3. Emperor Satoku, popularly known as Tengu. Emperor Satoku rose to the throne when he was just a child. Though official records stated that Satoku was the eldest son of Emperor Toba, it was an open secret that he was actually sired by Toba's father, the retired Emperor Shirakawa. Shirakawa wielded considerable power behind the throne in his retirement, and he forced Toba to abdicate in favor of the young Satoku, whom Shirakawa could control much more easily than the older and more ambitious Toba. After Shirakawa died, Toba became the power behind the throne. Toba hated Satoku, whom he considered a bastard son. He enacted his revenge upon Satoku by convincing the young emperor to appoint Toba's son as his successor and join him in retirement. Satoku did so, and Kono, at only 3 years old, became the new emperor. Kono was entirely the puppet of his father Toba. He had all Satoku's supporters transferred to distant provinces and filled the capital with people loyal to Toba. Emperor Kono was sickly his whole life. He passed away, childless, at the age of 17. This sparked a succession crisis between Toba's next oldest son and Satoku's son, both of whom had a claim on the throne. The imperial court, full of Toba's supporters, decided in favor of Toba's son. Go Shirakawa, went but died the following year. Satoku's supporters attempted to overthrow the young Emperor Go Shirakawa. There was a brief and bloody fight, but the rebellion was quickly put down. Go Shirakawa's revenge against the rebels was merciless. They and their families were executed, and Satoku was banished to Sanuki province. Satoku lived out the remainder of his life in exile as a monk. He shaved his head and devoted his efforts to hand-copying the Holy Sutras. After years of work, Satoku sent his prayer scrolls and the manuscripts to Kyoto as an offering for the imperial temples. Go Shirakawa suspected that Satoku may have cursed the work, and refused to accept them. Instead, he had the manuscripts sent back to Satoku. This rejection proved to be the final straw for the exiled emperor. Satoku bit off his own tongue, and as he bled to death he wrote in his own blood a powerful curse against Japan and the emperor. He poured all of his hatred and resentment from his entire life into the curse. As he bled, he transformed into a great Tengu. His nails and his hair grew long, and he never cut them again for the rest of his life. When Satoku passed away, his body was set aside while his caretakers awaited funeral instructions from the emperor. After 20 days, his body was still as fresh as it had been on the day he died. Go Shirakawa ordered that nobody should go into mourning, and that no state funeral would be held. While his coffin was taken to be cremated, a terrible storm rolled in. The caretakers placed the casket on the ground to take shelter. After the storm passed, the stones around the casket were soaked with fresh blood. When his body was finally cremated, the ashes rose into the sky, and descended upon Kyoto as a dark cloud. For many years after his death, disaster upon disaster struck the capital. Go Shirakawa's successor, Emperor Naijo, died suddenly at age 23. Storms, plagues, fires, droughts, and earthquakes all pounded the capital. Imperial power weakened. Clan rivalries grew more and more violent. Many of Go Shirakawa's allies were killed in battles, and the country stepped closer and closer towards disaster. Finally, in 1180, civil war broke out. After 5 years of bloody fighting, the power of the imperial court was drained, and the Kamakura shogunate seized control of Japan. All of this was attributed to Emperor Satoku's curse. There are tales that Satoku's vengeance lingers even today. In 2012, when NHK broadcast the historical drama Teranoki Amari, an earthquake struck the Kanto region right at the moment when Emperor Satoku laid his curse. Of all the evil spirits out there in Japan, none of them has brought so much destruction and calamity as much as the Oni, the Kitsune and the Tengu. These three have brought terrors and caused dread for generations, not just among the indigenous people of Japan, but also outside the country. And so, that is how they became the three most dreaded yokai of Japan.
How seriously good is the scent of game dish soap?
Kayla, why are you in our house?
Doing our dishes.
Again.
Girl, who you shushing?
Game. Seriously clean dishes, seriously good scent.
Okay, guys, today I bring...
Bruh.
The legends of ancient Japan speak of supernatural creatures who live in the spirit world and also in the material world. Legends say that the ancestral gods helped shape the world, enabling the emergence of the most varied forms of life. Japanese folktales are preserved in one of the oldest books on the history of Japan. Kojiki is the oldest book on the subject. With songs and poetry, it tells how the gods created the world. The yokai appeared in the world at the beginning of its creation. When the god Izanagi stripped his mantle to dive into the sea, several yokai of different sizes sprang from the
Got
body of the powerful god. The yokai lived in all kinds of environments, from high, desolate mountains to forests and deep lagoons. The yokai's behavior varied as much as human behavior did. Two yokai of the same species could have completely different personalities. However, human beings consider many yokai to be malicious and even evil creatures. For the yokai, the rules of laws of human society had no value. Yokai often hurt people or destroy objects, even if their intention was only to frighten or set some sort of playful booby trap. The yokai were not limited to physical form. They could also assume the form of spirits or ghosts. The more powerful yokai could also pass from the physical state to the spiritual state, according to their will. The kitsunes use this power to act as messengers of Inari, the goddess of fertility. There are so many kinds of yokai that there is no exact number in Japanese mythology. Among the most famous are the kamaitachi, whose name can be translated as wind weasels. As the name implies, the kamaitachi is shaped like a skunk, but instead of traditional claws and teeth, they have sharp blades like scythes. The kamaitachi are aggressive yokai. They often attacked human beings while taking the form of wind swirls. There were also the bakeneko, the monster cats, who were born as normal cats. But, depending on their life experiences, they could take on a demonic form. A bakeneko could appear when a cat reached a very advanced age, or if the animal was imprisoned for many years. When they turned into bakeneko, cats developed a second tail. Some got bigger than an adult person. Most of the bakeneko was resentful, who did not hesitate to attack or haunt human beings. But there are stories about cats that age just because they were well cared for by their owners. And in those cases, even if they turned into bakeneko, the yokai were grateful to the humans who looked after them. The bakeneko ended up bringing good luck and protection to their homes. One of the yokai most feared in ancient Japan was the kappa. They lived in the rivers and lagoons. They attracted attention for their strange amphibian appearance, which mixed a humanoid body with scaly skin and a turtle shell. Another unique feature of the kappa was the small hole in the top of their heads. That hole should always be filled with water. By doing that, the kappa kept its superhuman strength even out of water. The kappa were a great threat as they hid among the plants on riverbanks and attacked people who came very close to their territory. They also pulled the legs of distracted swimmers or capsized fishermen's boats, ingesting the crew. But there was a way to fool a kappa by weakening it on dry land. To do so, the person attacked would have to greet the kappa, bowing repeatedly. The kappa would eventually return the greeting, repeating the gesture, causing the water on top of its head to fall. Then, he would be too weak and unable to attack anyone. The ghostly yokai were the scariest. They could appear anywhere and could only be fought with exorcisms made by Buddhist or Shinto monks. The inugami are part of the spiritual yokai. They appear in the world through a cruel ritual, which takes the life out of a domestic dog while chants of suffering are sung. After its death, the dog becomes a powerful spiritual being who will protect the house and the family that invoked him. But if the inugami revolts against the people who created him, he may possess some family members, causing that person to behave animalistically and attack all those who stand in his way. The Shinigami are the spirits of death. They have no distinct form and are responsible for guiding human souls to the world of the dead. Shinigami can even induce humans to commit suicide. Shinigami appear in the world when a person loses his life in agony and suffering. That person then returns to the form of a dark spirit. Another kind of yokai is the oni. The oni are worldly creatures, similar to the trolls and ogres of European mythology. They live in hell and are responsible for torturing the souls of the damned, but they always look for a way to escape into the world of the living, looking for fresh meat. Oni are large, beastly creatures that usually attack people in forests and caves. The oni use big wooden claws. They dress in animal skins. Their smell is strong, and they are always furious. It takes a brave hero to face them. Yokai can even be found at sea. The umibozu are huge yokai shaped like a terrifying shadow with massive eyes. They attack fishing boats and sink commercial ships, dragging everything to the depths of the sea. Legend has it, the Omibozu don't usually attack without warning. They always ask the crew members if they fear them. If they answer yes, or if they hesitate, the yokai will destroy the boat. But if the sailors don't fear the creature, Umibozu will lose a good part of its power, retreating into the sea. When the cold winter emerged, one of the cruelest yokai would appear through the snow. Yuki-onna, translated as Snow Woman, is a yokai that appears in places with low temperature in the shape of a beautiful woman. According to legend, Yuki-onna is a young woman who died frozen in a blizzard. Because of the intense pain and suffering she felt, she returned as a vengeful spirit. Yuki-onna had an apparently serene behavior, sliding calmly through the snow. But that was only to attract the eyes of men. After that, she would start singing, luring the victim to her. Then, she revealed her true face, with cruel and bright eyes, using her long claws to tear victims apart. On some occasions, she was content just to lure men into a blizzard. Then, she would quietly watch while they freeze to death. Yokai can also take the form of common objects in human life. Karakase Obake is a yokai that appears in an umbrella that reaches the age of 99. The umbrella then gains an eye, a mouth with a large tongue, and a leg that allows it to move around. Some even develop arms. Usually, Karakasa Obake are harmless yokai who tend to appear suddenly to frighten people and then run away while having a good laugh. Some yokai stood out for their great powers or their proximity to the gods. That was the case with Kirin. Kirin is a sacred yokai in Japanese mythology. He serves as a messenger of the gods and only appears in the material world every 500 years. The shape of the Kirin has variations, but his appearance is almost always like that of a horse with scales and horns. Some even have a dragon-like head. Even as a yokai, Kirin is a kind of docile creature. He rarely allows himself to be observed by human beings. Nureonna is another yokai who doesn't like to be seen. Nureonna is represented by a snake, but with a female head with long dark hair. In other versions, she is a woman from the waist up and a snake from the waist down. She usually appears on the shores of beaches or rivers where she seems to wash her hair. If she is disturbed during this process, she reacts in a violent and cruel way. Legend has it that Nureonna enters the water, leaving only its human part visible. Then, she pretends to drown to attract a man's attention. If the man dives into the water to try to save her, she realizes she's a terrifying yokai, but it will be too late. Not all yokai were free and disorderly creatures. The Komainu were an exception. The Komainu are the famous lion dogs commonly found at the entrance of Shinto temples. Komainu are ferocious and noble beasts. They act as watchdogs, preventing the entrance of evil spirits into temples or houses. They are represented in statues made of stone or wood. They always walk in pairs composed of a male and a female. The male is always with his mouth open, showing his sharp teeth. His role is to protect the exterior of the building. The female is always with her mouth closed. Her duty is to protect the interior of the places where she was built. Legend has it that if the Komainu detects the presence of a ghost or an evil yokai, he will free himself from his statue form and fiercely defend his territory. The yokai were very important in ancient Japan. Their presence and symbolism remained very strong in some regions of modern Japan. With the popularization of manga and anime, the yokai became known to the Western public. And they went from ancient mythological beings to well-known figures in popular culture.
When it comes to cheese slices, choose the one that makes mouths water. The one that's irresistible. The one that's 100% real natural cheese. Sargento.
How could this happen?
This episode is sponsored by Boxu. More to come on that shortly.
The legends of ancient Japan.
After creating the world on the body of the giant Ymir, who had been killed by the Aesir gods, Odin went on to reign over the world atop his throne in Asgard. Even though he was a wise god, he was aware that he did not know everything. So he set out on an adventure in search of knowledge. He disguised himself as a wanderer and walked through Jotunheim, the land of giants and enemies of the gods. In this realm lived Mimir, a very ancient deity and uncle of Odin. He lived near the Well of Knowledge. The waters of this well were responsible for feeding Yggdrasil, the Tree of Worlds. Mimir, using the Gjallarhorn horn, drank sacred water, and his knowledge of the world increased. Odin went to his uncle's well and asked him to drink the water of knowledge. Mimir, I'm your nephew and lord of the gods, but how can I be worthy of my title without true wisdom? Being my kinsman or lord of the gods does not give you the right to drink from my well. The price is much higher than you can imagine. Tell me the price. I'm willing to pay it. The price is your eye. I want you to pluck it out and throw it into the well. Only then will you be able to drink the water from the Well of Knowledge. Odin knew that Mimir did not tell jokes. He would have to pay a high price if he were to attain true wisdom. The great god did not flinch and gouged out his own eye. His cry of pain was so loud that it echoed throughout the universe. Odin deposited his eye in the waters of the well, and this sacrifice satisfied Mimir. He offered him a horn with the water from his well, and he asked the god to drink the entire contents at once. After drinking the entire contents of the container, the father of all was filled with knowledge. A large scar filled the void where his eye had previously been, which at times emitted a brightly glowing flame. Odin came to be known as the One-Eyed Man, or the one with the flaming eye. Odin began to see the world much more clearly. With only one eye, he could see better than when he had two. In one ancient Greek kingdom, At a time when the gods still roamed among mortals, 3 beautiful princesses dreamed what their future husbands would look like.
Mine will be very rich and will cover me with the finest silk and the most beautiful jewels.
Bitch.
My husband will be a famous general, and he will show me as his most remarkable achievement. And you, Psyche, what will your husband look like? All I want is a love that will lift my spirit. So cheesy.
The 2 sisters were beautiful, but Psyche was certainly the most beautiful. So beautiful that she attracted everyone's eyes, making her sisters jealous. People from faraway kingdoms traveled long distances just to gaze.
She was a 10 out of 10?
Oh.
So cheesy.
So cheesy. Oh my god.
The 2 sisters were beautiful, but Psyche was certainly the most beautiful. So beautiful that she attracted everyone's eyes, making her sisters jealous. People from faraway kingdoms traveled long distances just to gaze at the famous princess.
Behold, the most beautiful creature who ever set foot on Earth.
Psyche was worshipped as a true deity, and the tributes previously paid to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, were now addressed to the young and beautiful princess. The offended goddess, caught in anger, watched the parade that followed the princess, while her temple was empty. Aphrodite gathered her son, Eros, the god of love.
Dear son, this mortal who thinks she is on the same level as the gods must be punished. Through your arrows, make Psyche fall in love with the hideous creature.
As night fell, Eros went to the royal palace and stealthily entered Psyche's room. Psyche was sleeping in her bed. Curiously, Eros approached the princess to see if she was really that beautiful. The god was overwhelmed, as the beauty of Psyche was truly splendid.
The fact that my mother is jealous of this mortal being is no coincidence. Her beauty can eclipse the most beautiful among the nymphs and goddess.
In an unexpected turn of events, Psyche turned in her sleep, and this movement disoriented Eros, who accidentally wounded himself with his own weapon. The wounded god instantly fell in love with the young and beautiful mortal, and because of his love, Eros failed to accomplish the mission that would have caused harm to Psyche. Psyche carried on her life normally and did not even suspect what had happened. But there was something strange going on. Time passed, and although she was the most beautiful and most beloved, Psyche was still single, while her sisters had several suitors.
Psyche, you have always been adored by everyone, but you are still single. While our sister and I are already happily married to the noblest of men.
Don't worry, daughter of mine. Your beauty may be overwhelming to some men, but soon a suitor worthy of your heart will appear.
But the king was indeed very much worried about his daughter's situation. The king was unaware that the lack of suitors was because Eros refused to awaken the love for Psyche in any man, since he was in love with the girl. He went to the Oracle of Delphi in his quest for answers. Inside, through a pythoness, the god Apollo pronounced himself.
Your daughter will marry a perverse, winged being who is delighted to wound mortals and gods. The princess shall be left on the edge of the abyss in matrimonial attire, where she shall be delivered to this terrible creature who will cause her death.
Apollo was referencing Eros, the god of love. The solar god harbored a great resentment for Eros, since he had made the god of music have non-requited loves. The king left the temple in tears, as he was resistant to the idea of losing his favorite daughter. But the envious sisters of Psyche insisted that he was to obey the orientations of the oracle.
You must sacrifice Psyche, or you will draw the ire of the gods and woe to our kingdom!
The king then revealed the sorrowful fate of his daughter.
My beloved daughter, by the will of the gods, we will deliver you to a terrible fate. Your beauty has become a curse.
The princess was led into the abyss by a bridal procession, which resembled a funeral procession. Psyche, hearing her parents' lamentation, did not hold back.
Why do they now bemoan my fate? A short while ago they rejoiced, proudly, to see me being adored like a goddess, while they knew the sacrilege that was being perpetuated. Now carry me up the cliff, and let me meet my dismal fate.
Psyche was abandoned on the edge of the abyss, in expectation of her terrible husband. A breeze started to lift Psyche towards the sky. This wind was the god Zephyr, also known as the West Wind. The princess levitated in the sky towards her destiny. After being swept away by Zephyr, Psyche awoke in an idyllic place. Flowers spread everywhere, and a delicious scent perspired the air. A beautiful palace featuring the whitest marble stood out in the landscape. Psyche climbed the stairs that led to the entrance of the palace, bewildered by all the wealth that surrounded her. The place was made of striking luxury, where there was no shortage of adornments covered in gold and silver. As she entered the palace, she heard a soft voice, but could not tell where it came from. "My lady, everything you see now belongs to you, and we are at your disposal to assist you in anything you wish." There was no one around her, but the young woman understood that these were invisible servants. They helped her in the bath, at meals, and sang and played beautiful songs. "Now you shall go to your room and wait for the arrival of our master."
My defenses are ready.
I'm not the only one in the family who's
100,000.
I'm a writer now, as you can tell from my gloves.
And what is your master like? They say he's a monster.
Some have mentioned him that way, but in fact he's not evil, just volatile. Already in her room, Psyche, distressed, was waiting for her fate. The cloak of Nyx, the goddess of the night, had already fully clothed the skies. The room was in utter darkness, and it was impossible to see any shape, when Psyche felt that something had crept in through the window. The lady felt the presence of her new husband, and could feel his breath on her neck. The young woman was tense, and had no idea what would happen. Against her expectations, she had a night of sublime pleasure, and her new husband treated her with much love and affection. When she awakened in the morning, her husband had already left, and due to the darkness of the previous night, she could not have any glimpse of her companion. Psyche spent the day getting to know the facilities of her new residence, but she kept thinking about when she would find that mysterious creature again. The night arrived, and Psyche was already waiting for her husband. The couple met and loved each other on countless nights. On one of those, Psyche couldn't resist and asked,
My love, why do you always hide in the shadows? I would so much like to know how you really are.
"Isn't the love we share enough? All I'm asking is that you don't try to see me. In the darkness, we are equals."
I'm sorry if I annoyed you. That wasn't my intention.
Psyche decided to respect her husband's request and stopped touching the subject. Time passed, and despite being very happy, Psyche missed her family.
husband of mine. I miss my family so much, and it hurts my heart to know that they think I am dead. I beg you to let me visit her.
Eros accepted Psyche's request because, according to his thoughts, if she decided to return after having been released, that would be the ultimate proof of her genuine love.
My beloved daughter, I thought I would never see you again.
Psyche's relatives were surprised with the girl's return, whom they thought they would never see again. And the return was triumphant. Psyche was adorned with the most beautiful jewels. She looked like the richest of queens.
How is your life with your mysterious husband?
It couldn't be more wonderful.
You're so
He's sweet
jealous.
and does everything to please me.
Her jealous sisters did not believe the stories Psyche told while she distributed beautiful gifts to her relatives.
Everything about our sister tends to be too much. I don't think everything she says is really that gorgeous. You don't have to believe me. Come with me, and you can see for yourself.
Zephyr, the wind from the west, led Psyche and her sisters to the heavenly palace. When they got there, they realized that everything their sister had said was true.
Oh my
But this
god!
only made her sisters more jealous.
Oh my
The
god!
envious sisters decided to poison Psyche's relationship.
I know that everything seems wonderful, but don't you remember what the oracle said? You married a monster, and he will be responsible for your death. Do this. When you sense that he is sleeping, take a knife, turn on a light, and after seeing the monster, cut his throat.
Her sisters departed, but seeds of distrust had been planted in Psyche's heart. The night came, and her
Wow,
husband
that's
was already
fucked
asleep
up.
beside her. The young woman took a knife, and little
Why is she gonna listen to her sisters? What? Why?
lamb. As she approached her bed, Psyche realized that this was not a monster, but a young man with divine beauty. The young woman moved closer to contemplate her husband's breathtaking beauty, and concluded that he could only be a god. But a drop of hot oil accidentally fell from the lamp, and it hit Eros' chest, who awoke, frightened by the burn. And he faced Psyche, wielding the knife.
How can you be such a fool? Is this how you repay my love? Thinking that I'm a monster and wanting to slash my throat?
Forgive me, my love. I know I made a mistake, but we can make this right.
I only asked you one thing, and you couldn't do it. And so you'll never see me again.
Eros flew out the window. Psyche jumped after him but couldn't reach him, and hit the ground. The fall injuries were light, but her heart was utterly broken. When they heard that Psyche had returned, her sisters ran to the cliff, hoping that they would be blown away by the west wind. Zephyr began to blow, and the sisters threw themselves into his arms. But he did not seize them, letting them fall from the cliff. The poor Psyche began to help with the tasks of the goddess Demeter's temple.
Sisters got what they deserved and fell to their death.
But she never stopped thinking about her lost love. In Demeter's temple, Psyche accomplished all of her tasks with utmost dedication. But all this work was not enough to make the young woman stop thinking about her lost love. The goddess Demeter showed her pity for the poor girl and decided to help her.
Poor Psyche. I feel sorry for your pain. So I give her the following advice. Go to Aphrodite's temple and offer yourself to the goddess
Same thing.
with humility and submission. Then you will soften the goddess's wrath, and perhaps you will be able to win back her love.
Who am I not to follow the advice of such a wise and benevolent goddess?
Psyche went to the goddess of love's temple, and she had no idea how she would be welcomed by the former mother-in-law. The young woman was met with great distrust by Aphrodite.
What is the most obnoxious and disloyal of creatures
Who have walked on this earth
doing in my temple?
I humbly throw myself down before the goddess of love and put myself at her service in search of forgiveness.
Do you believe that you will be forgiven easily by me? After robbing my honors and hurting my son? To purge your sins will be very painful, and you will have to do the most difficult jobs, which may cost you your own life.
I will do anything to at least have a small chance to get your forgiveness and win back my love.
Aphrodite chose to burden Psyche with painful tasks. As a first assignment, Psyche would then have to go to the grain barn and separate the different varieties, which were thoroughly mixed. The difficulty of such a task would have overwhelmed even Hercules. The god Eros, who secretly observed everything, made ants help Psyche in her task. This way, the young woman accomplished her work in record time. Aphrodite was angered to see the work accomplished so quickly.
I don't know how you managed to accomplish this task so easily, but the next one won't be so straightforward.
Psyche was supposed to bring Aphrodite a good handful of golden wool from dangerous sheep. These were no ordinary animals, since, besides having the golden wool, they were also enthusiasts of human flesh. The sheep passed through a narrow trail between thorny plants, and part of their wool ended up sticking to the thorns. Psyche collected the wool that was left between the thorns and presented the golden threads to the goddess.
Well done, but do not think it's over.
The goddess of beauty then demanded that the young woman bring her a jug of water from the source of the Styx River, which is located on top of a mountain. The task was seemingly to achieve, but Zeus ordered his eagle to collect the water from the source and deliver it to Psyche. And so one more job was accomplished.
I admit that you have been able to accomplish these tasks by conquering the mercy of the gods, but your next job will have a price that only you can pay. The hassle you've caused me has exhausted my beauty, so I demand you go to the kingdom of Hades and ask Queen Persephone to fill this box with beauty, so I can restore my splendor.
Aphrodite was a bitch.
And then you shall have my forgiveness and blessing to reunite with my son again.
Psyche knew now that her end was near, and she knew of no other way to enter the underworld than to take her own life. The young woman was ready to jump from the top of a tower when she heard a voice like a ghost.
There's another way. I'll tell you the route, and how you can overcome the obstacles known as Charon the ferryman and Cerberus, the three-headed dog. But when you come back, don't ever open the box in any situation.
Following the guidance of the mysterious voice,
This is an unskippable advertisement.
The three-headed dog. But when you come back, don't ever open the box in any situation.
following the guidance of the mysterious voice, she found a cave that would take her to the underworld. After a lengthy descent, she reached the banks of the Acheron River, and there she met Charon.
I serve the goddess Aphrodite, and have an audience with Queen Persephone, who awaits me.
She gave 2 coins to the boatman Charon as payment. So she crossed the River of Souls, toward the domains of Hades. Psyche introduced herself to the king and queen of the underworld, Hades and Persephone.
What does a mortal do in our domains?
I'm here at the service of Aphrodite, who asks you to fill this box with some of your beauty, so that she can restore hers.
Persephone gave the box back to her, which was now much heavier, and Psyche set out on her way out of the underworld. Psyche came across Cerberus, preventing her passage. However, she had taken with her, guided by the mysterious voice, barley and honey bread, soaked with a sleeping pill. She offered it to the dog, who fell asleep, and so Psyche proceeded to the surface.
Thanks for coming.
As the boatman made his return trip, the young woman saw her own reflection in the waters, and she noticed how all this work had made her look tired. Psyche started the ascent to the surface, and she would soon finish her last mission.
This box is nearly overflowing with
Thanks for
beauty.
coming.
It won't hurt me to take just a little bit for myself. And like this, when I find my love again, I will be beautiful and glowing for him.
Psyche opened the box, and out of it came a black mist. As she absorbed the mist, Psyche started to faint, and life began to leave her body. Eros felt that something had happened to his love and went to rescue her. When he found Psyche, she was cold as a cadaver. Thanatos, the embodiment of death, was already beside the girl's body. Using his powers, Eros lifted the mortal mist from her beloved's body and put it back in the box. Psyche awoke in Eros's arms and said,
My love, I feel now that I can finally look you in the eyes without risking losing you.
Then, the couple kissed passionately. Eros instructed Psyche to finish her work, handing the box to Aphrodite. In the meantime, the god of love flew to Mount Olympus, where he begged Zeus to convince Aphrodite to allow the couple to bond. Eros led Psyche to Mount Olympus. All the gods were waiting for her there. And from the hands of Zeus himself, and with Aphrodite's blessing, she received the nectar and ambrosia, divine foods that bestowed immortality.
Psyche, her path was thorny, but ultimately you managed to complete your quest. Now you are immortal and free from the obstacles created by men's ignorance. And the bond that binds you and your husband will never be breached. And this love will persist for all eternity.
From the union of Eros and Psyche was born Hedon, the deity of pleasure, and the love of the couple lasted forever.
When man becomes a god through the progression of love. Developers, fix that.
In one ancient Greek kingdom, at a time when the gods still roamed among mortals, 3 beautiful princesses
Time to test my strength.